Hello, Friday show. It's me, Rob Gutmann. No, it's not Neil Atkinson. He's still marooned in Morocco. You'll have him back next week. You'll enjoy me for one more week. I've got Josh Sexton, I've got Glenn Price, I've got Dan Austin, and I've got John Gibbons doing various interviews with people throughout the show. It's a youth versus experience show. Let's see who comes out on top. We're going to start with the Mighty Reds, as we tend to do. A big game for Liverpool this weekend, Josh. They're all big this stage of the season as our title hopes and our title dreams gain momentum. Chelsea, Friday night, under the lights. Are you excited?
Yeah, very. I'm not really sure what to expect from Chelsea so far. I've watched them in a couple of games, but apart from that, it's been more match of the day highlights and seeing Diego Costa's usual shithousery on the pitch, so I'm looking forward to seeing more of that.
Very good stuff. I mean, are you looking forward to seeing Liverpool play on a Friday night? Is this a thing in itself for you, Glenn? Or is this just a load of wank that people are talking about for no good reason?
Yeah, I quite enjoyed last season when Liverpool played Exeter on a Friday night. That was quite exciting. So
what a day that was!
Yes, so I guess with such a high-profile game, it could be even better. It's better. It's better than, I'm thinking of the match day fan here, but it's better than on a Monday night because it gives you the option to have the weekend in London or something. So, Friday night football, I'm not big into the hype that Sky have given it since it started, but yeah.
I'm going to throw my experience behind this one, because when they first started doing live football on British TV, live league football, they tended to do a Friday or a Sunday game, and Liverpool were top of everything back then. We frequently featured. You look on YouTube Kids, it's a famous Ian Rush hat-trick against Aston Villa on a Friday night, which will live long in the mind. Dan, stop me reminiscing here. Let's talk about Liverpool's potential to do something at Chelsea. We're a team that can score goals in virtually every single game. We've shown that potential. Only once we failed to show that potential. Where's the real Liverpool for you? Which Liverpool will turn up? Are you worried that there's not a real Liverpool in as much as Burnley showed it, or do Burton, Leicester, Arsenal all define this Liverpool?
I think if you're trying to define the real Liverpool, you have to combine both of them. Burnley is the real Liverpool, but so are the other games as well. The way the front line works, they're capable of producing them games where they might go and score 5, even at one of the best teams in the country. But at the same time, they're capable of going and starting without ideas and things, and then it goes from bad to worse from the beginning. But we seem to work better against the better teams who come out and play against us a bit, because we can use the pace then to pick them off. So, in theory, looking at the way we played at Chelsea last season, the way we played at City last season, and the way we've started at Tottenham and Arsenal, we should be going there looking forward to it and thinking that we can put a few past them, I think.
Josh, we certainly did that last season to Chelsea on their ground, but they're forewarned now. They showed that at Anfield in the 1-1 draw late in the season, and they weren't the better side. I think it was a fair result, but it was a hell of a lot closer than the first game. What are you expecting from this Chelsea with Conte matched against Klopp?
I'm expecting them to be a lot more defensive. Conte is a very pragmatic manager. He's a very Italian manager in some senses, and I'm expecting a lot more from players like Hazard and Costa, as I mentioned before. I'm expecting them to come out a bit more at us than maybe they did at Stamford Bridge last season. I know Hazard did have a really good game at Anfield, so I expect to see much more of the same from that.
Glenn, we did get a genuine taster of this pre-season, if you can call it that, in America. They beat us 1-0, tight game.
Most feisty affair as well.
Feisty. Most neutrals said we probably edged it, even though we didn't, in terms of the goals scored. Is it an indicator of what's to come?
Hard to say, really, because I think I was at that game and the 2-11s both sides put out at half-time or something. What I can say is Chelsea, it was a feisty game, and it was a tough pre-season game, pre-season friendly. I don't think I've ever seen one as niggly and aggressive as that. I think Marco Fabregas got sent off, didn't he, for that lunge on Klavan, and then Grujic came off, had to go to hospital with a concussion at half time.
Didn't they hurt Karius as well somewhere along?
Well, he punched Lovren, so they punched him.
Sorry. Yes, that was right.
Yeah, both managers played it down afterwards in their post-match comments, but if that's what they're like when there's nothing on the line, it should make for an interesting watch on Friday.
Dan, Chelsea are hard to call as a side this season. New manager, taken over a side that was dysfunctional last season. You wouldn't be surprised to see them finish top. Wouldn't be surprised to see them finish 5th, maybe 6th even.
Yeah, because of the way they ended up last season, and I think they were 10th or 9th in the league in the end. So we
didn't know this yesterday. We don't know it today.
Yeah, no one's looked that up. They're an absolute outlier. You can't really say, oh well, they should improve a little bit, because if they only improve a little bit, they're only finishing 6th or 7th. And if you think it's a massive improvement, it's very difficult to say after 4 games. So the ground results out very well, I think, so far. They came behind against Watford. They scored a late one at West Ham. They got a late one the other day to get a point back at Swansea. So I think the signs for them are looking like they should be nearer to 1st and 5th. I'm not saying they're going to win the league, but they really should be looking at finishing in the top 4. But that still doesn't mean that there aren't weaknesses there, because they can't automatically fix the shit show that was their season last year in one summer with a new manager and only 4 games. So they'll still have weaknesses, and if we can exploit them, I think we can knock them down a run or 2.
Okay, well, let's go over to John Gibbons now, who was chatting to Rebecca Knight, a Chelsea fan, and hear the Chelsea perspective. Over to John.
And now we are delighted to be joined by Rebecca Knight, who you all know by now. She's joined us quite a few times. She's head of football at UniLads, but she's also a huge Chelsea fan, and so we want to talk about the game on Friday from a Chelsea point of view, but also, I mean, Rebecca, we had you on a few weeks ago. We were both pretending that, a lack of European football will be good for our teams, and, how it'll help us surge up the table. And then you watch it last night, and it's a bit depressing, isn't it?
Yeah, you know what? It's very depressing. It definitely isn't something that I'm going to enjoy for the season. I know people keep asking me, how do you feel? Do you think it will help, your title challenge? I'm thinking, I'm not even sure if we have a title challenge, to be honest.
Well, you're second. I mean, that's a start.
Still can't beat Swansea. We'll just skip over that bit. But no, I think I would rather not have the Europa League for sure. But the Champions League, I think, is obviously a huge miss. I think anybody that tries to pretend otherwise is a Man United fan, and they've already got their excuses in from the last couple of years. So,
but it's just fun as well, isn't it? It's just fun and kind of what you're in it for. And you can talk about the strains on the league campaign all you want, but when you hear that music, you just want to be there and sort everything else.
Yeah, very much so. And I think obviously I know like Liverpool fans will understand when I say this, like the kind of the atmosphere, and we've had some very special European nights, and it's to like not have that is obviously very depressing. I think more than depressing.
But we've got a big game on Friday. Let's cheer ourselves up. Let's look forward to that. John Terry out, which presumably means David Luiz to come in. I would imagine that was maybe the plan anyway throughout the season, but this is obviously make it come a little bit earlier than maybe what they had planned. Would that be right?
Yeah, to be honest, I was hoping it would come on the 25th of never. It's obviously not the best, but we all know what David Luiz is like. We all know what he's good at. We all know what he's... I'm going to go with not so good because I have no other choice right now. Not so good at. I'm surprised the FA haven't clamped down on Cahill for his social media posts after the Swansea game, which I thought he might be in a bit of trouble there. And then obviously the defence would have been even worse.
Sure.
But I wouldn't even be surprised if David Luiz had like an absolute stormer of a game, because that's what he does. And then for the next 18 games is absolutely awful with those goals and like chances going everywhere. But I think, obviously whenever we play Liverpool, it's a huge game. And it's even last season when, back end of the season, we had literally nothing to play for. We didn't even have Pride because that went around Christmas. But, we had literally nothing, but it was still a big game and the players still got themselves up for it. The fact that it's on a Friday night is interesting, but I think both Liverpool and Chelsea are going to end up on Friday nights quite a lot, because obviously we don't have Europa League football, we don't have Champions League football, and those clubs are quite a big draw, so I hear. So I think, Friday night football is going to have to be a thing that we're going to have to get used to. At least it's an excuse to have many alcoholic beverages afterwards if things go wrong.
Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah, there's a whole weekend to forget about it, I suppose. But the other defender I want to ask you about is Alonso. You signed Alonso as well for a decent chunk of change for the left back. How quickly do you expect to see him, and what does that mean for the rest of the defence? I guess particularly Aspilicueta, who everyone thinks is really good.
Yeah, I think Azpilicueta will be as worried as he was the last two left backs. You know, we've spent 57 million now in 3 seasons on left back.
Yeah, he's going to get a complex.
It's ridiculous since Ashley Cole left. You know, couldn't have just given Ashley the 1-year extension and saved ourselves quite a lot of hassle because of Chelsea life. But, you know, we've brought in this guy who's played for Sunderland and Bolton, which, you know, is a stellar CV by any imagination. And then we've sent kids out on loan again. You know, when you think back to David Luiz even, we've got Christensen and Callas out on loan. We sent Bertrand Traore on loan. Kennedy's getting no mention of anything. And it's like you're thinking, right, okay, well, both the latter two can play at left back and did last season. Callas and Christensen, I think it is their time now to have a go, especially in John Terry's kind of twilight years, and get some help from him. But obviously the Milano way, the Chelsea way, the man that signed Falcao and Paytal in 2 months with each other, you know, is thinking, now I would go out and spend, you know, another 50-odd million, which is ridiculous. And to be honest, Alonso's going to go the same way as you know, Felipe Luis and Baba Rahman. Hopefully he'll be on the Felipe Luis level and not Baba Rahman, but I'm not exactly hopeful.
Oh, there you are. I was expecting a bit more positivity on that one, but there we go. I mean, we spoke to you just before the transfer window deadline, and you were talking about what they needed. Do you still see certain gaps in the squad? Are you still concerned in some places you think we could really do with a bit more quality there, or just another body, really?
Yeah, I think, obviously, if you look at the difference that N'Golo Kante's made, if you take Kante out the side again, that's looking a bit weak. Oscar seems to be untouchable, which, again, I can't fathom. Because if you know, we're hearing Fabregas is on his way in January, but if you put Fabregas there, which we've had to do at the latter stages of games when we've not been doing very well, it's obviously made a huge difference. Yeah. So, you know, I think if we gave Fabregas a bit more of a chance, but again, up front you'd point to, we've obviously got Batshuayi in, but whether he'll even get a chance to actually acclimatise himself to the Premier League, because again, the only thing with not having Europa League or Champions League football is there are less games. So the kind of fringe players do get less time, but it seems Conte wants a very small squad for some reason. So, you know, right back is an area I would look at as a potential issue. I would say the centre of defence again, because when you say words like David Luiz and Gary Cahill and potentially putting Ivanovic in there and 95-year-old John Terry, it's not exactly like saying, you know, Gerard Piqué. No. It's slightly more worrying.
Oh, you went a bit funny there, but got you. Okay, you mentioned that briefly just a little bit earlier about the Oscar and Fabregas situation. It seems to have become one or the other for this manager now. Would that be right? And Oscar seems to be winning it, and then you mentioned that Fabregas might be on his way, which surprises me. I wasn't aware of that. Obviously, under other managers, they've both managed to get in the team. Why is it that it seems to become one and the other, and why is it that it seems to be that Oscar's winning out?
I think it's obviously accommodating Conte as well, because if you look at last season with the play, Cesc and obviously Matic and then Oscar a little bit further forward, I've always thought Oscar's style would suit Serie A down to the ground, and I think Conte kind of sees that in him, which he's obviously very used to and likes. In terms of obviously looking at this season, whenever Fabregas has come on, he's changed the game, literally. I still think Oscar's a bit of a show pony who flatters to deceive. I'm not changing my opinion on that because I've had it since he joined the club. But I think for Conte, he's absolutely chosen Oscar for whatever reason. And, you know, Fabregas is not in his kind of younger years, is he? So he's not going to sit on the bench anywhere. So I think in January we'll look to go, which will cause a problem. But for me, that area of the team is quite weak anyway. Right. If you look at like a Liverpool or a United or even an Arsenal, because Arsenal have 10,000 of those players because they just buy the same person every single summer. You know, we do kind of lack, I would say. It depends obviously where Hazard wants to be a playmaker, then obviously we have that. If he wants to play on the wing, then Hazard seems to do what Hazard wants these days. But if Hazard is injured as well and Costa will eventually be suspended, you have to start wondering where these goals are coming from.
Okay, well, look forward to Friday then in particular. I don't think it's arrogant to me as a Liverpool fan to say it's your biggest test yet of the season, looking at kind of who you've played, and it feels like a little bit of a step up. Is it worrying as a Chelsea fan in terms of the form that that you're in rather than the results? Is there anything that particularly concerns you about facing Liverpool, or do you think it's a case of, well, if we get it right and play as well as we can, we should be fine?
Yeah, to be honest, I remember what Sadio Mane did to us without people like Firmino around him. So I think, my God Almighty, you're just going to kill us on pace. Like, no matter who plays on that back line, it's going to be a big issue. Firmino is obviously in very, very good form. Yeah. Coutinho worries me because I think he's been quite quiet this season. Yeah. And, it tends to be the big games that he gets himself those moments of magic in. So I think your kind of pace and attack is going to be a big issue. Costa has been, very, very good, but he's living on the edge as he always does. So I wouldn't be surprised if he either has, a 2-3 goal game or manages to get himself sent off.
Or maybe both.
I don't think Costa has anything in between anymore, does he? But I think Conte is going to be so important because obviously he's going to have to protect us. Obviously, we saw what you did to Leicester, who had one of the best defences in the league last year. Yeah. They obviously seem to have gone to pot this year, but for many reasons, I think. But in terms of the right-hand side of our defence, which is where all the trouble always comes down, the Ivanovic-Cahill side, and it was the same last year and it was the same the year before. I think you're going to have a bloody lovely time on Friday.
Well, let's hope so. Do you want to do a match prediction, or do you not want to risk it?
I think you might win 2-1.
Oh, Rebecca, you're my favourite. Thanks. I was nervous before, and I really enjoyed that. Okay, huge thanks to Rebecca Knight. As I said, she's head of football only at UniLads. Give her a follow on Twitter. She's very funny, especially when she's trying to watch football and there's animals getting in the way. But thanks a lot to Rebecca now. And back to the studio.
Good to hear from Rebecca Knight there, and very delighted to hear that she thinks we'll win. Typically, supporters of other clubs, when they're asked about the Liverpool result, they always say, we'll win, so they don't jinx it. So we're not taking that seriously on that, Rebecca. I tell you what did interest me in that discussion, Dan, was Rebecca stressed that Chelsea was susceptible to pace, that they were worried about Mane because he caused them problems with the Southampton team, and God knows what problems he could cause them with the Liverpool team.
Yeah, I think especially down their right-hand side, because even though he had such a bad season last season and he must be touching like 32 or 33 now, they're still playing Branislav Ivanovic, a full-back, with usually John Terry next to him, and I assume if David Luiz is playing, it'll be Gary Cahill moved over to that side.
Yeah, Terry's out. We know that.
Yeah, if we moved Mane to the left for maybe even 10 or 15 minutes of the game and he ran between them two, I think we could have a lot of joy down there, because that's a creaky side of the pitch for them.
How do you think they'll approach pace, Glenn? Sitting deep seems to be the obvious Conte Italian approach.
Yeah, I've been at the press conference today, and Klopp was, sort of joked that it'd be difficult to break down. He hinted on that maybe they could, give them something that they're not expecting. Chelsea, using the element of surprise, which I'm not sure what that would be with this Liverpool side.
We won't press, and we'll play really defensively. Not get men in the box. That would be a shock.
Like that game in The Simpsons when they're playing in the World Cup. Yeah,
holds it.
Yeah. Well, they fooled us with their crapness.
Yeah. But equally, Klopp did say that they might do the same thing. So, yeah, I don't know what to expect by that. It's going to be interesting to see whether Klopp persists with Sturridge. Now, obviously, Coutinho didn't start against Leicester because he clocked up the miles over the international break. So whether he slots in, because usually against these big teams, Klopp has likened to play the front three. Well, it was Lallana last season, but now with Firmino, Coutinho and Mane. So, but Sturridge did play well and was intelligent with his running. So it'll be interesting to see if he keeps his place, especially against Luis and Cahill, because Cahill had a bit of a troublesome time against Swansea on the weekend.
Yeah, Josh, I mean, before the Leicester game, and given the evidence of the early part of the season and certain games last season, you'd have gone, this has got front three of Coutinho, Mane and Firmino written all over it. Has Sturridge given Klopp something really to think about that he will respond to, or do you expect him to go with type, I suppose?
Most definitely, Sturridge has given him something to think about. I think, I'm not sure if it was in the press conference today, but I did see some quotes floating around from Klopp saying about Sturridge and sort of the assumption that he might be greedy, but how that's helped Liverpool and he wants to see more of it against Leicester. I think Sturridge was involved in pretty much, from what I remember, most goals or every goal against Leicester, and he had a really good game in general. And I think given Coutinho's performance against Tottenham, where he could have been much more clinical, and against Burnley, where he pretty much just lost his head with the rest of the team from about the 5th minute onwards. I think Sturridge has definitely put himself at least in the thoughts of Klopp before the game.
But he's a big Coutinho fan, Klopp, and he has picked him routinely in these kind of fixtures. Well, and more than that, he's routinely not picked a striker. What's your pitch then? You think he will give Sturridge the nudge? A nod?
I'd like to think he would, but then I'm one of them who wants to see Coutinho a bit deeper, so maybe I'm just saying that more in hope that he is going to put Sturridge up front, and then we'll see a deeper Coutinho. But I'd like to see him stick with what we had, really. I think Leicester was a near perfect result, barring Lucas's head loss, or Mignolet's, depending which way you're inclined. So I'd like to just see more of the same from that, really.
Dan, Coutinho, our ex-best player. We're now at that stage, which seems a good thing, and yet slightly troubling all in one. Where are you settling your mind on this issue at the moment?
If he scores from 30 yards tomorrow or on Friday, he's back to being the best player again, isn't he? We seem to change our minds on him every 6 weeks because he blams one in after about 6 weeks and then has a couple of quiet ones. In terms of the Chelsea game, I would be tempted to leave him out, partly because of the pace thing that we've just talked about. He's the slowest of them attackers. He's the one who likes to hold the ball the most and kind of take it towards the middle. So tactically speaking, I think it would be better to go for Sturridge, and he'd really put a shift in, I thought, against Leicester, which has been the main argument with him, is that he doesn't do the pressing and stuff like that, whereas I thought he did the other day. So to take him out would be really harsh, and then I think it would leave him in a situation where he doesn't really know what he's got to do to stay in the team if he's making goals like he did the other day and doing the hard work as well. So I think Coutinho has to wait for his chance from the bench.
Glenn, the surprise would be, if he actually dropped, as Josh hinted at, if he dropped Coutinho into the 3 rather than just out the side, probably if that happened at Wijnaldum's expense. Do you think there's any chance he'd consider that? He hasn't shown an aptitude for it, but we all want him to.
Yeah, I thought Leicester was probably Wijnaldum's best game. You saw real attacking intent from him. Maybe that's because Leicester were particularly poor on the day, but the big thing's Conte, isn't it, for them? I mean, you saw how badly Leicester missed him and just how well he started for Chelsea. So it's whether you're not going to match Conte, but it's the way of dealing with Conte best. Is Coutinho going to be, ready for that midfield duel with him?
Keep him busy in a different way, though, wouldn't it?
Maybe that's what Klopp's thinking could be.
Well, Glenn, there's another decision, although I think he hinted in the press conference of which way it'll go. Emre Can's fit, back in training, available for selection, and I think if he'd been available for weeks, he'd be a shoo-in because Klopp loves him. Is any chance you think he starts this one, or is he going to again be benched?
No, he pretty much ruled him out, if I'm honest.
I sense that.
I think he put him in. He said he compared the situation to the same as Sacco, in that he hasn't trained for a while, and not the same in terms of disciplinary with Sacco, but just in terms of fitness. I think it was a very polite way of saying he's not going to play. He did say that Lovren was back to play after his eye injury, which he sustained in training. So Chan's going to miss out, which we just feel Henderson's going to keep his place in the lineup after a really good game against Leicester.
Okay, well, pick your team for me.
I probably would keep Sturridge. I'd probably
start at the back with the goalkeeper.
Keep it.
We haven't touched on that.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? If Karius is fit and ready, he's been training. Do you lash him in?
You got to at some point. You'd have thought if you bought him.
Yeah. Although Mignolet didn't do anything particularly wrong against Leicester, other than his distribution a few times, but so I'll probably keep Mignolet if I'm honest.
Okay, the back four picking itself. With Lovren back in for Lucas.
That's a difficult one as well, isn't it?
It's not as easy as we think.
It wasn't a fitness issue with Lovren. It was just that he couldn't see. So
yes.
So he probably could go back in, and you wouldn't see it. I'd probably lash Lovren back in.
I'd be a bit worried about Lucas against Diego Costa. I think, especially on Saturday, he didn't really have much of a challenge in terms of a personal battle. And I think if he gets into that with Diego Costa, then we could see a silly yellow card earlier on. We know Lucas is susceptible to that, but also Diego Costa could really get the better of him in that, as playing against him in that defence.
All right, I won't make you name your lineups 1 to 11, but on the key decisions, Karius versus Mignolet, Chan versus Henderson, Lucas versus Lovren, and Sturridge versus Coutinho.
I'd go Mignolet for continuity over Karius. Probably throw Karius back in for Derby. The next one, what was it? Henderson. Henderson
Okay, let's go Lucas versus Lovren first off.
I'd go for Lovren for the challenger Costa. Henderson over Chan, which is what I think we expect anyway, judging by what Klopp said today. And then your last one
was Sturridge versus Coutinho.
And I'd go with Sturridge, just purely for continuity purposes as well.
Dan, round us up on that. These 4 conundrums I've posed.
I think Chelsea away isn't the one to be throwing a new goalkeeper in right away.
I suspect you're right.
Yeah, it's just not. Doesn't really make sense. He's going to face a fair few shots there. You want him having an easy one. I think Hull at home is the one that I'd throw him in forward. He should have a relatively easy time of it. I wouldn't really mind if Lucas played, to be honest, because I think he likes the needle a bit. I think he
likes personal duels, doesn't he? Yeah.
Having trying to take the piss out of Costa a bit. So I wouldn't mind if he played, but if it was my choice, I would play Lovren. And then I don't think Chan is going to be fit enough to play, so I'd go with Henderson, and I would keep Sturridge in instead of Coutinho.
You would? Okay, I think we have a quorum there. Glenn, any other headaches you expect for the Liverpool manager? What will he worry about ahead of this game? From a Chelsea point of view, who will keep him up nights?
Costa and Hazard. I think he pointed in his press conference that he reckons Hazard's back to 100% now after his dreadful season last year, which probably Mourinho's doing. So, and Klopp mentioned in his press conference that he often left. I think what he was trying to make out that he often left just one player on Hazard, which was unfair on the player who was meant to be marking Hazard, and so he's trying to figure a way to deal with that. And Hazard started the season really good. He does look to be back to his best, so that'll be one for him to figure out, neutralising that threat.
Let's predict the score. Go on, Glenn.
1-0 Liverpool.
Josh?
I'm going to go very bold, or slightly bold anyway. I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool.
Dan?
I'll say 2-1 Liverpool, yeah, I think they've got enough.
And I'll go 4-1 Liverpool. Okay, moving swiftly on to our blue brethren. Right, where to start with these guys, Dan? You were on a show with me yesterday where I was building a case for Everton as dark horse champions elect.
It's swiftly rebuffed.
Yeah, I wasn't given much credibility with that one. Let's look ahead to their game again. They're at home to Borough. It's a good game for them on the back of their start with 10 points from 12, handily placed in the Champions League positions. How are you calling this one? What do you see this? How do you see this transpiring?
I think they should go there and play well, but Middlesbrough, I think, because of the way that the likes of Stoke and Southampton and West Ham look like they've regressed, Middlesbrough are one of the better kind of non-top 6, non-top 7 teams. Yeah, the best of the shit. So they could very well find themselves ending up finishing 9th to 10th, especially if the likes of Negredo get a bit of form behind them. They've got some good players behind him as well, Stuani, Down and Ramirez. So if Everton's defence still isn't sorted, if it's still creaky like it was last season, then I do think they'll probably concede there. But then it's whether it was Danny Ayala and George Friend or something play centre half for them. So that could be a bit of an issue with Lukaku having scored 3 in the week against them. So I would expect Everton to go and put a few past them, but probably concede.
Glenn, even more than Liverpool, Everton seem to me to be a side when Goodison expects, when they arrive on the crest of a high, you know what they'll do. I really don't want them to get a result here. Although they should win, it's far from beyond them to totally banana skin this one, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or do you not expect that this occasion?
Yeah, I don't think Middlesbrough played particularly well against Palace on the weekend. And Palace aren't great either, are they? So, but going by that logic, you'd expect, Everton have... I think the transfer window kind of sent everyone over Everton in a frenzy, thinking that they hadn't improved throughout that window. But looking at it, they have really. Stecklenburg might not be first choice for the long term, but he's done well. Ashley Williams looks like I know quite a lot of transfers are gambles, but when you sign someone like Ashley Williams, you know what you're going to get, and he does a job, and he started well, and then you've got Balassi on the wing, feeding Lukaku, and then Idrissa Gueye, who's I think been their standout player so far. I just think they've probably got a bit too much quality, and especially I think that George Friend, who plays for Borough on the left back, he had a bit of a difficult time. I think it was against Sahara or someone. So, Everton got quite a bit of pace in that position. So
it feels like they've got quite a lot of pace and talent in their front four. At least players with the potential to turn it on. Morales, Balassi, Deulofeu, Lukaku, even Ross Barkley when he's in the mood. Feels like more firepower than they've had for a while. Yeah,
and these are all reinvented under Koeman as well, haven't they? A lot became, especially Morales, became disillusioned under Martinez towards the end, and then you've got Lukaku playing for a move away, so he sort of checked out towards the back end of last season, put some really bad performance. What was that? His first goal since March or something on Monday?
Yes, so, in 13 games.
Yeah, which is a bit mental for a striker. So, he came out and said he was going to stay at Everton for a while, whereas if you read between the lines, it made out that he was just, he was staying for this season, looking to hopefully secure a move in the future. So, his tail's up because he wants to get that move. So, yeah, I expect Everton's quality to come through, really, which is hard to say.
Well, Josh, I mean, it feels to me, and it feels like this has been an Everton story now for maybe a couple of years, that the difference between a half-decent season and a really strong season from them could rest on whether Ross Barkley can be the Ross Barkley he's threatened to be. Hauled off at half-time, rightly so, at Sunderland. Koeman showing a ruthless streak there. He needs to get the best out of Barkley and reharness him. Do you think he brings him in again this weekend, or do you think he punishes him further?
I think you would expect to see him start again. I think on his day, he probably is their best player, if not one of their best players. I think he is a very talented player, but I also think that Koeman will be looking at Monday night's game and seeing how much better Everton actually were in the second half compared to the first half. So without Barkley compared to what they were like with him, I'm not too sure what's in Koeman's mind there about Barkley, but I'd probably expect to see him start. And I think a game like Middlesbrough, where it's perhaps not as much of a midfield battle, could see him sort of lose the reins a bit and get a bit more freedom, and then have a better performance.
OK, let's go back to Gibbo. He's talking to Middlesbrough fan Dan Gray. Over to you, John.
I want now over to Mr. Daniel Gray to talk about Middlesbrough. Dan, you're a bit mad, I think, Middlesbrough, which is fun. You're ninth, which is quite fun as well. Have you sort of got your head around where your Premier League level is, yeah?
Not really, but that's probably about it. I sort of I perhaps expected a bit more consistency given Karanka's ways, but then there's a bit of messing around with the team, and Adoma leaving was a bit of a half a surprise and half not. So Saturday was a typically bizarre performance, because early on, first half hour, we looked really frightened, as if the players again didn't quite believe they were good enough for this level, and then it took after that, played some lovely football, should at least have got the draw. So I went away after a home defeat, walked out of the ground not feeling that depressed, really, which is an odd thing.
Was it a bit more of a kind of realisation that you're the belong here? Do you think that was why you were a bit more positive? Because obviously, Christy Benteke gets his goal. He's going to get 20 goals this season, and he's a proven Premier League striker. And the fact that you had played well just made you think, well, Palace isn't. It's not a bad barometer for you guys, is it? In terms of where you need to be a because they're going to finish about 10th or 11th, you'd have thought, in the end, and so to know you can compete with them, and for decent periods, as you say, playing them off the park, I think there is reason to optimism there, isn't there?
There definitely is. I mean, the first half hour was a different pace to anyone we've played yet. The football that were playing, the one-touch stuff, it just looked, you could really tell it wasn't the Championship anymore for the first time properly this season. But again, it was just really enjoyable, and once they acclimatised, I mean, Friend looked a bit shaky, and he gave away the second goal, really, which is unusual for him, both to make a mistake and be shaky. But generally, when he realised he could take on a full-back still. It was still just a football. It was still just a human being he was up against. then and I think that'll come more and more throughout the season. As we said last time, there'll be pastings as well against better sides. But yeah, Palace are something to aim for. Very powerful and pacey, and just stuff we haven't seen in the last 7 or 8 years, really. And just no need to panic. There's so much more going well than going badly, I think it's fair to say.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this weekend you've got Everton. It's the 5:30 kickoff, which feels quite exciting in itself. Liverpool's drunk by then, as you've experienced in the past. It's a step up again from what you've played so far. I think that's fair to say in the Premier League. They're third in the table and looking pretty good. But also your away form's actually good, isn't it? You went and won at Sunderland and then got a 0-0 at West Brom. So your away form's pretty good. So there must be some confidence going into that, even if there is a realisation that Everton look a pretty good team.
Yeah, all of it. I mean, a draw would be a fantastic result for us. It really would. Last year's Everton, you would have expected us to even try and go and win there. But as you say, they're looking really organised and fit and playing good football going forward. But I worry that Sunderland's no barometer for any of us, really. So I don't know.
That's a good book title. Third album. Sunderland's no barometer for any of us.
Not until October, when their season really begins, anyway. So, I'm really looking forward to Saturday. I wish I was coming down, and it's brilliant to be playing in a proper ground like Goodison again, with a full ground and noises. Hopefully, if everyone's not too hammered so they can't even speak. But the trouble with it is, if we do lose on Saturday, you might expect that we'll lose the next one as well. Spurs at home, and then three defeats in a row that does become slightly concerning, but I'm not going there yet. We're much more likely to beat Spurs than anyone else, to be honest, in the past Middlesbrough tradition.
Yeah, I mean, I noticed Danny Ayala's been in the press and been talking about the kind of the start that Middlesbrough made, and he's talked about the fact that there's still the aim is to defeat relegation. Still the aim is to stay up. And do you think that's the kind of right attitude? Because I think Middlesbrough could aim for higher than that. But then is it I suppose Leicester was still talking about getting 40 points in January, weren't they? So is it the idea you think of, well, we'll get to 40 then see, as quick as we can, or see where we are, or do you think there's maybe a little bit dangerous if you don't kind of set your standards too high, then before you're in a relegation battle anyway?
I think privately they're aiming much higher than that, to be honest. It's been the same kind of speak with the Karanka for the last few years. He talks about reaching the playoffs as his aim when you knew very well it really, really wasn't. And similarly this year, I think they'd be disappointed to be, like as Bournemouth did last year, everything was about those 40 points and then they seemed to collapse after that. I think 40 is always that old cliche, but I think they've got the sights beyond even being anywhere near the bottom three by the end of March. I would think they're looking, nothing higher than 8th, but I don't think it's as downcast as the club public makes out, but taking nothing for granted as we saw on Saturday.
No, definitely. I mean, there's still the team seems to be. I mean, obviously, you say they're finding the way, the Premier League and understanding the level there, but also there's quite a change around in the squad, isn't there? I was looking at, you did a lot more than I thought you'd do on deadline day. There was good players coming in, players we've all heard of and stuff like that. And you think, well, just to integrate all these into the definite style that Middlesbrough have got and the style of play and the guys who've come up, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge, isn't it? So the fact that you're picking up points already can only be a positive, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. It's much more changed than I imagined.
Yeah, definitely.
It really is. And the fact is, Ledbetter is still out and he's our club captain, and he was a voice we really missed on Saturday. I felt the type of player who'd look around and say, come on lads, you're good enough to be in this league, and give them that bit of, I even sort of fantasised at half time that he'd be in the dressing room in his suit, which I always like to think a captain should do. Just reminding them. I mean, Clayton, who's been an absolute revelation for a year now, was a bit lost on Saturday and was substituted, which is almost unheard of. And I just felt if he'd had Ledbetter next to him going, come on Adam, you might play for England Monday, keep going and all of this. But the more change than I anticipated. One big disappointment for me is that Jordan Rhodes hasn't been used at all. I'm not quite sure what's behind that. I just feel, even just as come on from the bench, something different, and he works his socks off always, and he's never really played at this level, so I can't wait for him to get his game now that he's definitely staying till Christmas at least.
Is that a bit tricky to see where that happens though? Because obviously you bought Traore and they've paid decent amounts of money for him. I know he's more of a wide player, but it's forward players on the pitch, isn't it?
It is, and when he's rigorously sticking to one up front, and Negredo's the favoured one, and he works very hard as well, and looks a quality player. But that's my disappointment so far. The trouble is, he might well chuck him in at somewhere like Everton, and then that's a very hard place to have a good game. But there's nothing that depresses me really. I think, as you say, we've brought many more players in than I anticipated, so getting used to the system. But it seems to be a fairly cohesive squad again. Yeah. And best of all, they've got rid of after-goal music in the ground. So
oh, really?
Tremendous, yeah.
Well, wow. How's that happened? Do you think the manager's just wait until his stock was highest and went, something that's been bothering me?
I'd like to think it was him, but even more that it was fan pressure. But I've no idea really. They probably just knackered the stereo.
He'll be back in October when the Premier League money comes through.
I just noticed on Saturday after he scored that the celebration seemed to be louder and go on longer, and then checked afterwards, and indeed they'd put out a statement saying trialling no after-goal music for the first few games. So trialling. Yeah, that's the thing, isn't it? But so that's been the greatest signing from my point of view.
Yeah. Yeah, that's huge. I feel like going out on the back of that. We can defeat this one club at a time.
Yeah, exactly.
What are we going to focus on next? We'll be like a flying picket. The other one that surprised me on deadline day was Chambers, in that presumably there's some sort of agreement with Arsenal that he's going to play a lot.
I never know if those agreements are
real.
Because do we make them up? The other ones, a lot of the ones Karanka's brought in the past have hardly played apart from Bamford. So I'm not sure. I just always, like I said to you before, feel that sort of blocks the development of I particularly love a centre half we've got called Dale Fry, who really reminds me of Gary Pallister. And he's gone off on loan now, and Adam Reach has gone to Sheffield Wednesday for quite a lot of money, and it does slightly sadden me. I'm not naive enough to know that you don't need stronger players and things, but I don't know how much better a lot of these loan players are than what we had already from the local area, which has always been our strength.
Well, especially with someone like Chambers, where you think, well, he's a young player, and you're not presumably going to get the benefits even if you do improve him, because then he goes back somewhere else, or they look to sell him or whatever. So it just kind of, it feels a bit frustrating there sometimes. But
it's a weird one. I suppose you can aim for that level where you're not doing that anymore, and that's a bit of a barometer when you're not. At least there's only one this year. Yeah. Beyond Patrick Bamford, not many have had a great effect.
What became of Patrick Bamford? Where is he now?
Just the strangest career, isn't it? His Wikipedia thing's just full of bracketed L's.
Did he actually sign for Palace?
And he's currently at. Why have I gone blank as well? He's gone on loan again to someone that I've completely. Burnley or someone?
Oh, let's Google it.
Yeah, it's such a good show.
Boy, this is a sign for the footballer that if you do well somewhere, just stay. You just said, you know what, Middlesbrough's great. Right. Middlesbrough great. Forget what they say about the women being really sad on the news and stuff like that. It's absolutely brilliant. I'm playing that well. They all love me. I'm just going to stay here. That's what he should have done.
Absolutely right, and it's amazing. I don't know if it's agents or what that just give them strange ideas of the grass being greener. The clubs just fit certain players, don't they? And he was definitely one.
Yeah, I've looked it up. He's at Burnley.
I was right. Yeah,
he's made one appearance this season. After a solid 13 the year before. Sorry, 16. A couple of League Cup ones.
And he is, in fact, related to the JCB family of Digger fame. Didn't know if you knew that. That's a more concrete fact than who he actually plays for.
They're not getting that on other shows, are they? I'll tell you what.
No, they're not.
ESPN aren't giving you that.
So he doesn't even need to work. He's part of the Bamford Empire.
Well, maybe that's the problem. All right, we'll leave it there. I'll tell you what, you're going to beat Everton, just say yeah.
Yeah, 3-0 probably.
Yeah, 3-0 there you are. You heard it here first. Thanks a lot to Daniel Gray. Back to the studio.
Thanks there to John talking to Dan Gray. Interesting, Josh. Dan sees Everton as the toughest game so far back for Borough in the top flight. They lost last time out. They've got Everton away, and they've got another tough game coming after. I think, if I'm right in saying, it might be Chelsea. They don't want to be losing 3 on the bounce. They'll need to keep it tight, Borough, won't they? Yeah, they will, especially against what we're seeing this season is much more of a threat in Everton's side than perhaps we saw under Martinez. I'm not sure what the best way to approach it for Borough is, because I don't think Everton do have the same susceptibility at the back as they did last season. So perhaps they make use of Negredo's power and maybe go long to him. But yeah, I think definitely they need to
perhaps need to sit a bit more deep than they have been doing so far to get the best out of this game.
It was interesting at Sunderland. Everton were frustrated by Sunderland for a good hour, and then Sunderland showed their rank lack of quality and fitness and aptitude for this division. Have Middlesbrough got significantly more about them than Sunderland, do you think?
I don't think so, no. I think...
Good news, Blues.
I think Sunderland are really struggling with injury problems and perhaps a case of having a bit of a bad manager. But I think Middlesbrough have still got a couple of players in there which are championship quality, probably at best. They have signed a couple of sort of former Premier League stars or top level stars in Negredo and Valdez, etc. No, but I don't think they have too much more about them than Sunderland. I don't really see them getting much of a positive result out of that one.
Dan, Everton looked to be over their malaise of last year under Martinez, where I think they flirted with relegation, but they were far too near that end of the table for far too much of the season. They look solid. They look more than solid enough for a top 8 finish this time out. What's the? I know you all scoffed at my idea that they could enter the title fray, but what do you think their upper limit is in terms of finish this season, realistically?
I think there are 6 teams that are comfortably better than them. That's not to say that they haven't improved or anything, but I think obviously there's the 2 Manchester clubs, Chelsea, Arsenal, us and Spurs, who are just a level above them at the minute, and it will be too much of a gap, especially because they are very reliant on Lukaku. They didn't manage to get a striker. If he has another one of them patches, like you said before, where he doesn't score in 13 games or something ridiculous like that, then it could be a real problem, because even though they've got those good players in behind, they don't really score that many. Got Balassi, Morales, Barkley, Aaron Lennon, Kone. They're not prolific by any stretch. Deulofeu doesn't get very many either. They're good players who can get the best out of Lukaku maybe, but if suddenly they're without him, then that could be quite a problem for them. And even with him, even if he gets his 20, 22, whatever it is, I still think in the bigger games against those sides, they just won't quite have enough.
Okay, will you give me a prediction for their game against Borough at the weekend?
I think they'll win 2-1.
Okay, Glenn?
They'll win 2-0, I think.
Josh?
I'm going to go same as Glenn, 2-0.
Okay, Blues, good news there. Let's look at the rest of the weekend games. Let's start with Leicester-Burnley. I'm going to put this one on you, Josh. It'll be after their first Champions League game for Leicester. Interesting to see how they respond. Burnley, we know we'll get work rate out of them. It's a one that Leicester really need to get it back on track. Almost, it feels like every game could define their season at the moment. Are they going to be a team who can ensconce themselves in the top 6, top 8, or are they going to revert to type and find themselves looking towards the Championship?
I think it'll be interesting, definitely, to see how they approach that, because they played most of last season with sort of a core squad of no more than really 13 or 14 players, if not a bit less than that. So particularly after the Champions League game, which I'm right in thinking is tonight, is it? So yeah,
as we record, it is, yes.
Yes, it is.
Bruges.
And so it'll be interesting to see what sort of team they've going into that, whether it'll be the same. The one thing they did show last season, though, on that topic, is energy. So you'd expect to sort of see them doing a bit more running as well. But equally, Burnley showed against Liverpool that they're capable of a high press and also counter-attacking. So maybe we'll just see a game where 2 teams are parked in their own half and the ball's just on the centre circle.
So your prediction would be?
I'll go Burnley to scrape it, 2-1.
Ooh, I like a cut of your jib, young Sexton. Go on, Pricey. What are you calling this as? Give me a score. I don't want to hear what you actually think about the game.
Oh, okay. I think Leicester will win.
Leicester will win. So it's 1 win, 1 defeat for Leicester. It's in your court there, Dan.
I'm going for a win as well. I can't even believe they've even bothered turning up and doing the league games this season. They should still be missing all of them still on the same night out. It's never going to get any better. So
some of them are.
They should have just turned up for the Champions League games and said, no, we don't want the league invitation. We'll leave that there. The
president of Aston Villa in 1982, who did exactly that, won the title, finished about 13th, but won the European Cup. Managed to get the title-winning manager sacked halfway through the season as well. That's another show. We should do what they call history show just about Villa in that season. So mad. But anyway, okay, moving on. Glenn, Palace, Stoke, clash of the Titans. Bring it.
Stoke are bottom. I didn't realise that. Yeah, they are bottom of the league.
And there we'd like them to stay, I think.
Maybe. Mark Hughes lost his head against Tottenham, didn't he, on the weekend? Was it a dive or something from...
Did you see him trying to get that walkie-talkie to work for like 10 minutes?
Yeah.
And then they banned him from using the phone. Like he was just sat there with the gob on.
He didn't know where to go at first. I think Match of the Day 2 had him on there sort of too good, too bad, but he was every single bad thing they had was just happening to Mark Hughes that day, so... Yeah.
Is this the season the Hughes bubble bursts and Stoke never to be seen again?
Mark Hughes is a weird one, especially at Stoke. He's got really good players, and then they sometimes have a really positive result against a good team, and you think, he's a good manager, and then they just lay an egg so many times and just hover right in the middle of okay to mediocrity. I couldn't believe it that they were bottom, especially with that squad. But going on to Crystal Palace, who they're playing, Crystal Palace are actually using the advantages that having Christian Benteke in your side it does. I think they've started to play former Liverpool player Martin Kelly. I think he's sometimes started at left back as well, just so that he can swing high balls into the box. I think you saw it against Middlesbrough where he just beats the central defender to a header, and that gives them their first goal. So. But Palace, Pardew was under a bit of pressure before that game. This is a bit of a make or break season for Palace. That's their fan base is a bit torn on whether they want Pardew to continue or not. But I mean, Benteke scores goals as Liverpool saw last season, even if he didn't play that much. So goals always help, and they can always help win you games.
Dan, I mean, with the money these two sides have spent, crap as they've looked this season, they should have far too much about them to go down, shouldn't they?
Over the course of 38 games, you would think so, but then if you hit a fairly lengthy malaise, it can be too difficult to get out of. It's not True. Just on paper or how much money you've spent. We saw that with Newcastle. Newcastle were down there all season and couldn't get out of it. So I think if they don't pick up soon, if they're still kind of loitering in 19th by the end of, or the middle to end of October, then it's going to be a fairly long season for them. And I could quite easily see both of the managers getting binned off at some point as well, because they have spent so much money. They've both been there now as well for a fairly long time compared to what a usual Premier League manager's duration is these days. So if the crowd start getting on the back and a few results go the wrong way, then I think both of them could be in a bit of trouble, if not definitely going down at the end of the season, because there are other teams who on paper you think have barely got a Premier League player between them. So
okay, will you give me a prediction then for that one? How do you see it turning out?
I'll go with a draw, because I don't think either of them are good enough to beat the other, to be honest.
Glenn?
Yeah, probably a score draw.
Josh?
I'm going to go with 1-0 Palace, Benteke to score.
Okay, Benteke to score. It seems like he's the only one who will score for them just right now. Let's move on. Dan, Watford-Man United is the final game we're discussing. United need a result, having had their bubble burst a bit by City. Much as I'd like them to fail here, it does feel like for any criticisms we might contrive about United, they just have too many good players in too many positions that the games they should win, they will win. That's how it feels to me.
Yeah, the three that they've had before City, they won quite comfortably. They weren't rampant or anything, but at no point did you feel like they weren't going to win the game, so I was expected to be the same there. Watford are a really weird one. Like, I can't believe Watford are doing so well. That the players that they bought and sacking Sanchez Flores, who you thought was doing well, and bringing someone else in who doesn't even speak English, that had recipe for disaster, finishing 20th written all over it to me. But they seem to be going well. They're getting the best out of some rejects like that Etienne Capoue and stuff. So
they kept the star players, didn't they?
Yeah, and they've switched to that 3-5-2 as well, which no one in England has played in about 10 or 15 years. So it's probably a bit weird for.
Oh no, 3-5-2. No, yeah.
Yeah, no one's played a proper 3-5-2 in a very, very long time. So it's probably a bit weird for the likes of the younger English managers who've never really seen it to come up against. So they might be all right on the basis of being a bit mad. But I don't think they've got enough to properly trouble United. Especially that Bailly looks really good to me, and I think he could probably handle Troy Deeney all right.
Whatever they throw at them. I mean, Josh, Watford last season were a proposition on their own ground. Can they be a proposition for United, or are United just going to have too much for them?
I think, unfortunately, in this one, for all of us, United probably going to be coming out on top in this one. I think Watford aren't really going to see the same as what they got from Deeney and Ighalo last season. My head's still gone personally with the amount of money they rejected for Ighalo. So, but no, I can't see anything else than a United winning this one, unfortunately.
Glenn?
Leicester have only won one game, and that was last week.
You mean?
Watford, sorry. Yeah.
The West Ham one, yeah.
Yeah, the West Ham one when they were 2-0 down, which, if they don't win that game, they've lost 4 games on the bounce in all competitions and stuff. So, it was kind of a must-win game even at that stage of the season. I know they had quite a difficult start, but this will probably be the end of their tricky first 5 games of the season, and then the next one's against Burnley, who I probably think will finish bottom. I do think United were outclassed in the first half on Saturday, and then they caught a bit of a break when Bravo, had his mishap, which got them back into the game. I do think they've started the season quite well, and you don't want to think that the old Man United are back, in that they just play till the end and keep going. We saw that against Hull when Rashford scored really late on after they just peppered the Hull goal and kept going. So, I think United have got the quality to break Watford down and get the win.
So give me your prediction, your actual prediction.
3-0 United, probably.
Okay, Dan?
Yeah, I'll go 3-0 as well.
Josh?
Unfortunately, going to be boring and go 3-0 as well.
Fairly conclusive there. And that rounds up our preview of the weekend's action. We're going to go now to give you a sample of a show we're doing every week at the moment. Well, before each away game, it's our very own John Gibbo talking to his mates. This week talking to his mate Mick Clark, Kev Walsh and Ben McCausland about their experiences on various away trips down the years to Chelsea. It's always compelling listening this.
Chelsea, Friday night, first of all. Should we do that? Are you in favour of Friday night games?
Absolutely.
I find home games are good.
I'm 100% in favour. You've got to take it up with the Swift.
Absolutely not, John, no. We've got our £30 tickets and I want all the home games on a Friday. Someone start a petition for me, please.
Yeah, brilliant.
Yeah.
More of this.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I booked the train down for Chelsea. I think we're on about 3 o'clock.
If it was any other game, I think I'd have gone. But Chelsea, along with Tottenham, can get the most in the bin I've ever been.
I've sort of
hate Chelsea.
I've sort of boycotted Chelsea unofficially for a few years now. I hate it, and I don't enjoy the day. And I just think it costs me. Let's say for once. Well, in fact, no, you'll have to buy an adult ticket there.
Because they're the worst for kids.
Let's say 50 quid for me ticket, 50 quid for me train, and then 50 quid for me day to have a shit time.
And normally get swatted as well.
Beat, yeah.
50
I mean,
well, yeah, there is that.
I've not been to Chelsea before. I'm looking forward to going, but I've always been surprised.
You've never been to Chelsea?
No.
Really?
No. I just sort of haven't got round to it, really.
Hey, John, don't get your hopes built up.
Well, no, but what's
it's as shit as we're talking about.
Because people 100 times in 3 seasons.
I was going to say, remember the raffle when we were there once a week?
Semi-finals? No, I never went. But what?
We went that much. We had a mate who was a steward there.
Excuse me, another funny away day story. That same mate was the fella from Fulham. Who, when my other mate Matthias spewed up all over himself, had allowed us to take him to the train station, and then he let us back into the ground, didn't he? Nice guy.
we used to be mates with like an proper old school.
He was a proper Chelsea skin. He was covered in tattoos, bald head. Probably at the time he was mid-50s maybe, so he'd probably be 10 years older than that now. But he was a nice fella. Do you know what I mean? He saw us as probably the 2 scally scousers that him and his mates had been when they'd been our age, and Matthias made an absolute pig of himself, didn't he, thinking he could drink special brew at Fulham. He sat down for the full first half and just spewed all over his coat. Absolute mess. We took him out at half time, didn't he? It was the 4-2 game where Biscan scored. Yeah. Biscan scored and then Alonso got one, didn't he? We were 2-0 down, won 4-2. But he was on at Chelsea, wasn't he? And when we bumped into him, he remembered us as well. And he's the only positive I've got to say about Chelsea, and that includes Fabio Aurelio's wonder strike there.
Because people who listen to this, maybe in other parts of the world, might think, Chelsea's kind of a nouveau rich club and all these like yuppies, as you said before, Arsenal going. But I mean, I know you say Ben, it was a bit nasty, wasn't it? Quite a bit.
Yeah.
Chelsea's old
gets
school.
Batak going in and stuff like that.
They've got like the old school NF following, haven't they?
Yeah.
And the proper Chelsea skins.
And not just a few either. And that's not a criticism. That's to say there may be a lot of people who followed that from years ago and are embarrassed by doing it now, but still follow Chelsea. So these people, do you know what I mean? They've not gone to string and violence. They may change the political views or whatever, but they've not become string and violence. And I think me and Ben have experienced it once or twice down here, haven't we? Where we've had the heads-to-heads with people because they're as outspoken as we can be after. But it's
another one where you come out and you immediately fall in with them, aren't you?
Yeah, straight.
You're right behind that big shop, aren't you?
And normally, because we've been tongued, it doesn't work out well. But
even record's terrible there, isn't it?
Well, even in the European Cup, when we 2-0.
Rich?
Shadou's
goal, yeah. Yeah,
that was my first time at Stamford Bridge.
First time me and Mick, well, we didn't even meet, we were just on the same bus. We went down, we hadn't won there in 174 years or something. We ended up with Patrice Lucy in goal, didn't we?
Yeah. Patrice Lucy, yeah.
Heskey Skinson on the right.
And it was a great cross, great cross.
Yeah, that was my first time.
Yeah, it was my first time.
My first ever goal at Stamford Bridge was when Georgie Weah scored 2, and I think Zola got the 3rd, and it was back in them days. In fact, to be fair, I think the Sherry goal was you were still at the side.
Yeah.
But this was a boiling hot day. Me and my mate Bowyer, who's just been married, congratulations Bowyer, went down when we were probably about 15 or 16, and we went down on Happy Ells. It was one of my first ever few away games. Absolutely brilliant day out, but then we got down here, it was boiling hot. Couldn't get in anywhere for the thing because we were so young looking. So it was a bit exciting but not great. And then in the ground we got absolutely dicked. George Weah, the life out of us. He was brilliant. African football of the year at the time or whatever he was, and he absolutely batters us. But I always remember there was 4 our Liverpool skins in front of us, and to a 15-year-old me, they looked massive, all skinheads and all that. And about 10 minutes before the end, I just remember one of them pulling a light bulb out of his pocket and going, "Come on, lads, let's go and get them."
Yeah, I'll see you there.
What's he going to do with that? It's like he's going to run up to him and go to his mate. Look, I've got a boss idea. Oh, yeah, but it was a mad day, and we got dicked 3-0.
Another one like that, about Chelsea. We went there. Remember the last game of the season to get in the Champions League?
Oh God, yeah.
The very last game, it was with Bronkfist, was it?
Oh yeah, remember him?
He
was another one we nearly signed as well.
We got wrapped up by the police at Earls Court. Wouldn't let us go anywhere. Walked us to the ground. 20 minutes late, we got to the ground, and like that processing us through the turn.
For a few years, they
went 1-0 when we got in. Ipia scored.
Yeah. We took the lead, didn't we?
Yeah.
It was basically a playoff, wasn't it, between us and them?
Yeah.
They got it, and Abramovich bought them.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's depressing, isn't it?
Yeah.
But even when Chelsea were very good, they used to beat us in like the 90s and stuff.
But do you ever remember I didn't go to the game, but remember the FA Cup game where we were 2-0 up at half time? I remember watching Milan's in Gilmoss, and I remember going to the toilet at half time, and I was, so what was that, about 92? So I would have been up 9 or 10 or something.
A bit later than that, I think. 95?
Yeah, because we would have, so probably 94 then it probably would have been.
Yeah.
And I remember tuning up, and I remember I was bouncing, I went to the toilet, and I was a singing, we're going to Wembley, tell me man and all that shit, and I went back in, watched the second half, and Mark Hughes scored, didn't he? We ended up getting beat 4-2, and I remember thinking, Liverpool, why do you keep doing this to me? I was so cynical at such a young age, because at that stage we had no glory at all, did we? And we hadn't had for quite some time, which, when you look back on it, probably wasn't as long as a period as you thought it was, but to a 12, 13-year-old Kevin Walsh, it was an absolute living nightmare. Going to school every week, and Everton had beat us, or...
Yeah, Everton had avoided relegation and beat us, and fucking...
Twice in the derby every year.
Like the twats.
Honestly, people forget that, we laugh at Everton now, for... the amount of times we beat, for everything. For the amount of times we beat them now, and we have done for so many years. People forget that from when. So I was born 83, so I was gone to secondary school in 94 to 2000, thereabouts. Once I got to sixth form, and I think we only won one derby.
Wasn't until Houllier came in.
Yeah, and then Houllier come in, and we just absolutely turned it around on him, and then Rafa he destroyed them at will, didn't he? And then Everton, by that stage when they were beating us, they were bringing out DVDs, weren't they? The Andy Johnson one, that terrible Lee Carsey one with that shit Tim Cahill picture where he said,
But it's like, when we were in our sort of formative football years of 12, 13, 14, we were getting routinely...
I honestly remember...
Terrible teams that were teams at the bottom of the league.
Honestly,
were beating us 2-0.
Remember Danny Cadamasi?
Yeah.
Do you remember that one? I remember being in our end for that one. And Ruddock, do you know what? He was shit, wasn't he? In reality, he was shit. He had everything, but he didn't commit. But whatever. But they got chained by this 16-year-old kid or 17, whatever Kadamati was at the time, and he just chunked them down the line and put it in. And I just thought, this couldn't sum up my Liverpool supporting career anymore if it tried. A supposed world superstar getting skinned by a kid, and I remember going home after that game and getting in bed and having a little cry to myself. I was that devastated by it.
I used to dread going to school on a Monday after
I did.
Duncan Ferguson had just taken apart our whole team.
Because it wasn't like we were winning anything, so you couldn't go, you can't go, but we finished 3 places higher than you, because they're not us.
Wow. Yeah. You finished a mighty 6th. You don't give a shit, do you, when you're a kid like that? But anyway, enough about
Chelsea. Chelsea it is, mate. Chelsea this week. I mean, can you go in it? Can you have a drink at Chelsea? Looking at you, mate.
Do you know what you can,
Yeah.
Where'd you go?
Wales
Court.
What's the pub over the road?
The Caulfield.
Yeah.
Caulfield,
it's sounding there.
It's an Australian pub.
Yeah.
It's expensive.
Well, it's London, but if people are going to Chelsea for the first time, you can't get the train there.
It's right outside the station as well, isn't it?
And you can even get the tube from Earls Court to the ground to get to Fulham Broadway.
Yeah.
There.
Oh, yeah. It sounds lovely.
You can walk.
You walk through the
Rapid Police.
You walk through the graveyard, don't you? If you walk, I've been walked through there a few times by helpful London Constabulary.
All right, there we are. Okay, we'll leave that for Chelsea.